Howdy, everybody. Well, I thought I'd stop by this place to get some quiet and peace. Life is really hard for people who are struggling after not having much of a sustainable relationship. Believe me, it really struck a nerve, so I needed to find some place to go to cope with the pain and setbacks each of us has to go through. Also, I thought I'd let you guys know that I'm currently setting up plans to help director Zack Snyder continue his vision if we succeed on getting through to Warner Brothers Discovery and its top shareholders to stop holding the rest of his vision hostage out of such twisted political ego and personal conflicts of interest, especially when it comes to their geopolitical obsession with China and their incapability of going over what they've got wrong and doing things right. Yeah, much of Hollywood's going to hell lately, and nothing much is changing because courts won't let people won't mind their own business when it comes to suing sometimes. Too much money is involved in our system, and it's really hard to tell how the hell we're going to undo what got us to where we are. Well, for starters, I thought I'd let you guys know that if we are to get the Snyderverse restored, it's going to take years. Hopefully at least a decade till we can see another movie of Zack's on the big screens. Some of you are aiming to get Justice League Part 2 and 3 over to Netflix just to rush everything to a conclusion. You know, with the whole Superman turning evil and Justice League's epic fight with Darkseid. Well, it's not that simple. After all, when James Gunn responded to Ray Porter's voice as Darkseid with that tweet, it shows just how desperate they are to force people to forget about Zack's vision and move on. But I can't. I can move on from something, but I'm not moving on from the Snyderverse after what he and Zaslav did last year. Stabbing everybody in the backs, canceling some potential movies people were looking forward to seeing. Really? There's a reason reason why we have the entertainment industry and why we don't want politics being injected into them. It helps get people's mind off them. I mean, politics does nothing but cause problems, especially when everything is rigged against us. When it comes to centralized power and conflicts of interest. Yeah. In fact, the movie industry is meant to serve as the only guardrail left to help keep people afloat. And now, Larry Fink of BlackRock and other private equity CEOs like him have really lost it. I mean, what more does he have to gain other than having taken control of our Treasury Department just to get our government to ditch the paper dollar for some blackmail digital currency that wouldn't do people much good? What? How can we expect to move on if there's no consequence or no decency? I'm telling you, if we are to get the Snyderverse restored, and if we do succeed, we need to let Henry Cavill do his second Man of Steel movie first, so we can see him go head-to-head with Brainiac, and just to make sure that Warner Brothers does not fucking interfere over their obsession with Marvel or out of some selfish, twisted political ego they can't seem to restrain themselves from being compelled by. we're going to need to get we're going to need to provide Snyder with some details, and I already have a lot to offer. Sasha Calle, after the Flash film, should come back and should return to reprise her role as Supergirl, even if she is an ancient person who's been put into cryostasis inside the Fortress of Solitude. And rather than just bringing Fiora back, Snyder should also pit Superman and Supergirl against Silver Banshee in that movie, while having them go head to head with Brainiac at the same time. And they should also include Metallo and Cyborg Superman as well. And of course, I would love for Dwayne Johnson to make his return in that movie so that he can start setting up his own team after the events. Because we do owe him for trying his best to get the Snyderverse back up and running before Zaslav chose to stab us in the back with his ego last year. Also, for Ben Affleck, he deserves more than just one Batman film. He deserves a trilogy. And rather than just one film with him taking on Deathstroke, they should also have a long trilogy with 4 hours long for each film, based on Nightfall. You know, where he goes head to head with Bane and his men, and deals with a prison break of his greatest enemies and other convicts who have escaped prison. Nolan may have included elements from the comic in there, but they weren't as big and epic as the comics, and that's what the problem with Dark Knight Rises was. He was holding back. Of course, his way of doing movies was the right path that Snyder brought us on. And because of how rotten and selfish Warner Brothers was to take advantage of him leaving over his daughter's death just by having shelved all the projects he had in mind to show us, that's one reason why we should not be giving up to the oligarchs and bigots who are constantly dictating the movie industry. Believe me, Larry Fink and his friends in Manhattan, Boston, Pennsylvania, and San Francisco, and Langley and Washington, D.C. should not be exploiting the movie industry for their own selfish political interests. It should be a hands-off. Also, for the Nightfall trilogy, I would love to see Snyder include more of that awesome action scenes with Affleck and the rest of the cast, including his sidekicks, and make sure they do a proper job of Bane this time, and not let the studio hold them back. Then afterwards, they should definitely do the Snyder Flash film, and I have the details provided online for them in my first part. Rather than doing it off of Flashpoint, they should focus it on Barry's confrontation with Professor Zoom in the New 52, where he finally brings him to justice for his mother's murder. Well, as much as I'd like to elaborate more on what I have in mind, this is all for now. Oh, and they should also do Snyder should also do his own version of Batgirl to help Leslie Grace get over the setback that Zaslav caused her, since Zaslav screwed us up royal big time. Well, keep fighting for the rights of the Snyderverse. And remember, don't just fight for Justice League Part 2 and 3. Also fight back for Man of Steel 2, the Batman movies, Wonder Woman 3, and make sure they don't violate the characters like they have in previous films, even if it means getting people like Amy Adams recast as Lois, replaced as Lois Lane with Felicity Jones instead. Be sure to comment. Later.